James, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Funny old Friday, isn't it? You know, there you are thinking, well, is old Morgan McSweeney going to finally take the fall? Is he going to disappear because of the latest revelations? Is he going to be taken out before Party Conference starts on Sunday? But no, instead, remarkably, we're going to have a brilliant new policy for ID cards for everybody, except there won't be an ID card. It'll be called Brick Card, but it's an app.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, this is the thing that's been long been considered, something that Tony Blair, who you were just discussing there, has been lobbying for many, many years. And after a summer of near record level boat arrivals, they've decided that this is the great answer. Of course, this already sparked a huge backlash, people like Nigel Farage and Kerry Bay complaining it won't do anything, and actually that it's merely going to penalise the law-abiding majority at the expense of the minority who break it. So I think there'll be a big debate that's coming up, but I think it's not going to be one that necessarily develops to Starmer's advantage.
Well, the problem is that one, it's a very unpopular sort of policy. Two, it doesn't appear to be very well thought through. It doesn't appear to have any real, parameters, and it's not imminent. Certainly, it does. They're talking about it maybe over the course of this Parliament, so probably never. And all it seems to me to be is a sort of distraction from all of the other things that are going wrong inside of Downing Street.
Well, there's this big speech today Keir Starmer's doing at 11 o'clock, and it does feel sometimes that, first of all, Starmer can go sort of invisible. We haven't seen much of him since Trump was here, and they're doing the big state visit together. And then second of all, that he hasn't really been very proactive in terms of using the bully pulpit at Number 10 to his advantage. So I think maybe there's a hope that actually, after a series of bad stories, including, of course, the stuff around Morgan McSweeney, this will shape the news agenda. But I also think he's under pressure on his own side because people are saying, look, you've got this difficult conference coming up. You've got Andy Burnham running rings around you. When are you going to go out there and lead? You're the Prime Minister, for goodness sake.
Right. Well, this is the thing. I mean, for most of this week, he's been incredibly kind of invisible, hasn't he? He came out yesterday and made a few statements about handing out cash for regions, and everyone's kind of going, what does that even mean? They've spent best part of the last year closing down about one pub a day thanks to the national insurance rise. They now say, oh, we want to save pubs. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, isn't it? Which is that, if you hike taxes to the highest level for 30 years in terms of the tax raising budget last year, and then you complain about the effects and second order consequences of that in terms of hiring and jobs, it all seemed a bit sort of disjointed and unsuccessful. And look, I'm going to be honest, I've looked at the funding for this and it's less than Boris Johnson's levelling up. Yeah. Labour say that was a failure. What's going to be different about this? So I think that it's another sort of scheme which Labour will like to think will solve some of the issues, but the reality is that what's driving Reform UK's rise is migration and actually the failure to stop the boats. So I think they can try and deal with the kind of side issues here, but actually it's not going to work.
No, that's the problem. And I mean, as if, to add insult to injury, if you like, and no doubt they'll spin it, and she's made all sorts of nice noises about how pleasurable it was to work with Keir Starmer. But he's lost another Director of Communications. I mean, it's kind of it's starting to look like less of an accident at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's 4 in about 14 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's sort of World War II bomber command levels of survivability. I mean, I think this is the issue. I think a couple of things. I mean, one of those people left, Paul Ovenden, was because of revelations about what he'd said years ago. Yeah. There is some concerns in Whitehall about this new book that's coming out called The Fraud, which one person likened to me to Spy Catcher in the 1980s in terms of any government attempts to try and hush up from being published abroad, etc., which is quite funny. But I think, look, there's clearly an issue here. Some people around Keir Starmer have lost faith in him. And Patrick Maguire, who wrote the authoritative book on him, tweeted yesterday, I think there's only 2 people in the building who actually like Keir Starmer. Yeah. And I thought, well, one's his wife, and presumably his kids is the other one.
I'm not even sure his wife likes him, to be honest, because, I mean, you only see her every now and again with him. It's almost as though she sort of agrees to do some things and not others. Like, she appeared at Chequers, and that was all fine. But for a lot of the stuff that he does, she doesn't appear to be anywhere to be found. And, it's not at all clear what his kind of his personal life is really like. I suppose he would say, well, I try to keep my personal life out of it. But unfortunately, if you employ your wife as an occasional piece of eye candy to take to international summits, you can't leave your personal life out of it, can you?
Well, I think that there's definitely something in that, and I think it'll be interesting to see if, we've previously had leaders under pressure have their wives or spouses introduce them or appear alongside them at party conferences. Interesting to see if that'll happen this week, because I think Keir Starmer's got to give the speech of his life, given how much discontent there is in the Labour Party about what he's doing. And a year ago, we obviously entered conference season, lots of questions about registrations, donations, and a sort of an underwhelming sense of leadership. And this year, they've got even worse.
Well, that's right. And he's got this other sort of mission today, hasn't he, to reclaim the flag. And you're kind of like, I'm looking at a piece in The Sun today. Britain faces a violent struggle from protesters claiming to be patriots. Sir Keir Starmer will warn today. I mean, he seems to be setting himself on a war footing with all of the people who were at that Unite the UK march last weekend. Now, you can say what you like about the people organising it, but there was an awful lot of people there who were not in any way to be described as far right, who were just simply people who are sick to death of the way that this country has become overrun with illegal migrants and with, you know, the change of direction of the government. And so if he's going to try and make out that only he and his ilk can wave a British flag and be proud to do so, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, isn't he? Because we've seen this morning another new poll out, the YouGov poll, which puts Nigel Farage very much clearly in the driving seat as far as the next Prime Minister goes.
Yeah, absolutely. That poll will send shockwaves, I think, through all of Parliament, because that's the first one done. MRP are the sort of biggest, most comprehensive seat-by-seat predictions, and that was last one was in June. So it shows that over the course of the past 3-4 months or so, Labour has gone backwards at a rate of knots, and Nigel Farage is on course for number 10, albeit in a coalition likely rather than majority. So I think that that's going to very much set the scene. In terms of patriotism, this is something that the Prime Minister struggles with in terms of articulating his vision for the country. He always gets a bit sort of tongue-tied in a way which, for instance, Tony Blair could deliver a plausible explanation about what he thought about the flags and symbols, etc. So I'll wait to see what Keir Starmer says. I don't think it'll be a great piece of soaring rhetoric today, kind of Love Actually Hugh Grant style. But I think that he has to be very careful with this stuff, because most people are very... I think people obviously are law-abiding and want to have respect from their neighbours, etc. But equally, they're getting increasingly frustrated that people in Whitehall and Westminster don't share their concerns or seem to have the solutions to tackle them.
Yeah, absolutely right. And finally, back to the old story they don't really want to talk about. And this, I mean, I always hate calling it one in, one out, because it really isn't. I'm told they've added 2 more to the list of people who have left. So that's 6 people out. And from the Channel arrivals in September alone, 3,180 in.
Well, I mean, I think maybe you need Rachel Reeves to look at the figures on that one. I mean, that does not suggest a very healthy bank balance, a deficit, as it were. So I mean, 6 so far. I look forward to the government minister to spin that on the morning media round.
Yeah, absolutely right.